I've made 2 other videos about UFO whistleblower Jason Sands. I'll put links in the description. This is part 3 and the final part of my deep dive into UFO whistleblower Jason Sands, who came out as a UFO whistleblower on April 20th, 2024. Let's dive in, y'all. This is a long video, but you're going to enjoy it. If you're new to the channel, y'all, and you like content like this, please hit that subscribe button. I put out a new video every day, 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. I do not miss a day. And of course, hit that like button, betters. That really helps out the videos. So thank y'all so much for the support there. And of course, comment down below of what do you think of these newest revelations about Jason Sands and Steve. Okay, quote, Steve, who is also telling his story and seemingly backing up or meant to back up Jason's story as well. So let's get in. There's a huge web of dots to connect here, and we'll do our best and see if we can do that. All right. So first thing we're going to do, I'm going to give you a little reminder of what I teased at the end of part 2, right? So just a little reminder.
Okay. Yeah, sorry. And so she, and one of the questions she did ask us, she asked us about Lou, right? And I don't know Lou, right? I don't know Lou. But I don't know Lou. Some others do that I spoke to, but I don't know him. But she said, why is Lou going around telling everyone they're a threat? And she said he knows they're not a threat. He knows because he's had contact with them. Okay. And so later, right? Later, I was told that was true, that Lou has had contact. Now I don't know what that means, and I'm sure he can speak for himself, and I'm sure it's going to come out in his book and speaking engagements and whatnot. I'm just relaying what was, what happened. But I was told, right, that is true. Lou has had contact, and that gave a little more credibility to what Anelie was telling us, right?
So he's saying, Steve, again, this guy that just came out, that's not his real name. His name is Steve, works for the government, and he's sort of seemingly telling his story, which I'm going to show at the end of this video. I'm going to let you hear from Steve and him telling his own personal experience. And it's intriguing, sad, and disturbing all at the same time, and fascinating, all wrapped up into one. So stay tuned to the end for that of this deep dive. We're going to end on that. But basically, right, Steve is talking with Courtney Marchesani, okay, who also helped break Jason Sands, right? And she does a space the day before Jason Sands goes public, right? In another Twitter space, Courtney is speaking with Steve, right? And at this juncture, basically, right, Steve is just explaining his story, and he's talking about Lou Elizondo, right? And he's saying Anelie, this woman named Anelie, told him that Lou Elizondo has had contact with a UFO or with the beings, and that's going to be coming out in his book or whatever, right? So, bombshell news there, right? And who is Anelie? Who is this woman that he's speaking of that's giving him this information? If you listen to this whole space, there's way more to this Anelie woman and Steve and their connection. But I'm going to give you guys a quick little peek of who Anelie is. It's this woman right here. And there's a lot to her. Again, links in the description. Go check her out. We do not have time to go over all of this, but I'm just going to play a little clip.
Many of you know me by Anelie, because that's how I chose to come forward with the name of what the higher beings that I am here to disclose to you about today have called me since I have become aware of their presence.
So there's a plane that goes overhead and they wait like a minute. So basically this woman does this press conference here in the Capitol with this pseudo security guard behind her, right? Pseudo Secret Service. And, she tells this amazing story. You should Google her, look her up on YouTube. Anjali, Anelie. Okay, so apparently worked for the government and came out with her own story a couple years ago. She's a former U.S. intelligence officer, right? So she's had experiences. And anyway, so this is the person telling Steve about Lou Elizondo, right? So take that with a grain of salt or take it however you want, depending on how you feel about Anelie, right? So again, links in the description. You can go check out this entire press conference. It's over an hour long, right in front of the Lincoln Memorial. It was August 17th, 2021. All right, so let's go to Jason Sands. All right. Jason Sands, just so you know that they're connected, right? Jason and Steve. This is the beginning recording of the famous Twitter space where Jason Sands came out. And originally it was not available because it wasn't recorded. So it's taken a minute, but it finally came out. And this is something that I heard in the beginning. It's also quite fascinating to listen to the whole thing. But again, you're talking about a 5-hour space, right? So it's out now, but it previously was not released. So many of you watching and listening have not heard this before. Again, this is whistleblower Jason Sands getting ready to talk about how he knows Steve and that he knows him so that you guys can see they are connected.
You want to answer his question?
All right, so we heard, is this the guy from the James Fox documentary? Is this who this?
Yes.
Is that who you are, Jason? Okay, perfect.
I'm exactly who that is. Yes.
Thanks.
So you're, just to be clear, you're the guy that Steve has been talking about, right?
Yes. Steve and I met back in 2021. He is correct in that it was in reference to the stuff that you've been talking about. And he called me because I ever since I started to sort of help out with the task force, with some of my Black World expertise, I guess, to try to make sure that we weren't looking at videos that we already had in our inventory. And I was trying to tell people, hey, this is one of ours. This is not something we need to worry about. Let's spend our resources better over here on this unknown thing that we don't know anything about. So that's when Steve and I kind of connected, and he just, he's a really good guy. He was trying to just figure things out just like everybody else, just like I was when I first started the program. And he's just a really good guy. I actually talked to him today personally after hearing him on the show, and reconnected with him, and we had a really good conversation.
You talking about Courtney's show?
Yeah, and
that's the one we were just listening to. So there, clearly you can see that Jason knows Steve. They've spoken, right? And because in that Twitter space, again, the day before Jason Sands comes out, Steve talks about Jason's story, but doesn't say who it is, right? They don't talk about who it is. They just keep saying this guy, right? So because of that, I thought it would be interesting to hear Steve tell Jason's story, right? So this is the full story all brought together that honestly, Jason didn't really tell it like this. So again, a lot of you are going to be hearing this for the first time. Jason Sands' story told from Steve's perspective, right? This is what Jason told Steve, and he's retelling it on this Twitter space. So, and again, they're not going to refer to him as Jason, but they are talking about Jason Sands. All right. So again, the day before he comes out and blows the whistle in a Twitter space, they tell his story.
Repeat the story that you said on Spaced Out Radio. Okay, so
you got it. Go ahead.
One of the whistleblowers, right? He posted in this forum, and I mean, this forum post was hot, right? I mean, people were like, "Oh my God, what the hell?" This person says in the early '90s, he's former military, and he was on the range of a military base. And he was just doing his duties, right? He was part of a convoy, and I don't know what he was doing, but he had some work. He had some work out in the range that he had to do. And they told him, the security folks told him, before you go out there, do not talk to anyone, right? You need to know before you go out there. You need to know you do not talk to anyone. If you see anyone in the range, do not approach them. Okay, and so he's telling his story in this forum post. And so he gets in the vehicle. He's driving out in the desert, and sure enough, he sees somebody. And he sees somebody in a camouflage military uniform. All right, a U.S. military camouflage uniform. And this person has blue skin, no ears, okay, and big eyes. And he gets out of the vehicle, and he approaches this being, and they start talking. He starts talking in English, the being, right? And the being, ask about an element. Okay, he needs an element for his ship, right? And the being mistakenly thinks that this guy is part of a maintenance team to meet him, right? So we got a being in a military uniform and thinks there's a maintenance team on its way, right? So there's some cooperation going on there at some level, right? And and there's the case of mistaken identity, right? Because he thinks this guy's part of the maintenance team. So he says, "Why are you?" The guy says,
Mistaken identity. That's ironic.
to the being, like, "Why are you talking to me?" Right? And the being says, "Well, the driver there is about to run me over, and the guy in the back, he's having a panic attack, right? But you seem pretty calm about this." So then they switch over to telepathy. Okay, the being starts talking to him through telepathy, and they.
Hang on.
Steve, if you can hear me, you just cut out. So I'll just cover for you. So Steve? Oh, I thought I heard him come through. Oh, okay. For some reason you cut out. Okay, go ahead. You were saying that they were communicating telepathically. Go ahead.
Sorry, yeah, they were communicating telepathically, and then and so he what happens? Oh, the guy, right? The guy that posted, he says to the being, well, why didn't you need this element? Why didn't you go over to Area 51, right? Why don't you go over there and get what you need? And the being says to him, well, they're those guys over there, they're murderers, okay? And I call him up. I call him up on the secure line, and he's telling me, kind of retelling the story to me in person. I'm sorry, over the phone, and he's very sincere, right? He's very sincere. He's an older guy. He's cleared like I am. He's got the tickets, right? So he's not some crazy person just on the internet or something. And so he's telling me the story, and yeah, the part about Area 51. Why don't you go? Why didn't you go there? And I ask him, I'm like, well, U.S. government, right? So what? Military base, Area 51. What's the difference, right? And he tells me, there's a difference. Okay. And he tells me that he spoke with folks in the old program, and apparently there was a crash at one time, right? Of an ET crash, and there were 6 occupants, and one of them survived. And so they, I guess, captured or took in this 6th occupant, right? And so they had him, they were holding him, and another craft comes, and it's the beings, the same type of beings, and they want their people back. All right. And the guy, somebody over there said, well, we don't have him, right? Maybe you should go look in the desert, right? Maybe he's wandering around the desert somewhere, right? But you need to look elsewhere. We don't have him here. So that was what was communicated to me. This person, right? He's going to tell his story. I think he needs some hype, right? He's going to be his story.
So real quick, we're going to continue. There's more to this. It's quite interesting. But again, he's telling Jason Sand's story, right? And, there's a part of the story where he starts off of why Jason is out there in the desert, right? Just there's a little confusion there if Jason was still in the program when this happened. Because I've heard him say to other people that he was, or at least other people have said that he told them, You know, one person will say, no, he was out of the program and he was on a training mission just separate from it. It just happened to happen. Right. Again, there's just a lot of confusion there. So I don't know. I don't know if it makes, you know, if it even matters. But, you know, that part at the end of the other beings came for their friend and were told, we don't have him. Go look in the desert. Maybe he's walking around. Like how long? Like this alien being's just been walking around for months or something. And they also spoke about the forum, right? You've heard that mentioned again. That was a little confusion there too. Again, if included in part 2, go check it out. Link in the description, where Jason was saying he was in the UAP task force, but also it came out that he was actually just part of this forum, UAP forum, where over 1,000 people in this basically group chat, you know, people in the government who just talk about stuff and discuss stuff. So he posted this story in the forum, right? That's how Steve knows about it. And that's what he's retelling, right? What got posted in the forum, right? So it sounds like maybe there's a few different versions of the story. What he posted in the forum, maybe what he's testified to, what he told in the Twitter space, and what he's told other podcasters. I don't know, you know, and maybe discrepancies that don't really matter, right? That's possible. Even a true story that someone retells will change a little bit as they remember different things or just over time or whatever. So you remember this happened in the 90s, right? But he's just now coming out. But let's continue.
The story is going to shock a lot of people, and I think he has a lot of credibility. That, you know, he's got a lot of credibility. So people.
He does, and
they're getting ready to talk about the other 2 people that were with Jason. I get them confused. Steve and Jason, that were with Jason when they encountered this blue being. Right? A lot of people were giving me shit about blue being. Blue being, indeed, it's not blue. Steve just describes him as blue because that's what Jason has said. Now he's changing to albino. You know, whatever. I don't know. I'm just saying. I didn't say blue, right? That's where I get it from. So anyway, they're getting ready to talk about the other 2 people that were with Steve that I didn't know this part, right? So this is interesting. Or that were with Jason, out in the desert, right? Who were the other 2 people that were with him and what happened to them? Because they could help come forward and corroborate his story, right? They were all 3 on this little mission out there in the desert and, you know, come upon this alien. And apparently the alien was speaking English first and then switched to telepathy with only Jason, not the other 2, right? It's important to remember. So this alien, this being, apparently is the being that crashed with his friends. They all died except for him. Anyway.
And he still has credibility, you know, and he's still cleared. And I've heard from him personally now. You know, I've met him personally. I've seen his credentials. You know, I've seen all his agency information for him to verify who he is and where he works. And, you know, he's gone to great lengths to fill in the blanks for me, you know, and he didn't have to do it. He certainly didn't have to do it, but I had so many questions, you know, about, you know, gaps in information. And, you know, while he will talk about some things, he can't talk about others. And there's a difference between, just for everybody to be paying attention when he does come out, you know, there's a difference between his personal experience.
Which is the very next day. They didn't know that. Courtney did not know that he was going to come out. Nobody did. Jason just did it. Again, he's not supposed to come out apparently till James Fox's documentary, which is until the end of the summer, right? That's when he was supposed to make his big public appearance, not in some Twitter space. So I don't know.
Experiences in the program, all right? Like what he personally experienced in the program. And then there's also what he witnessed when he was coming into the program, that he documented, that he has fact evidence for, that he's presented and testified to the Senate Intelligence Committee. So just keep that in mind. You know, when you see him and hear him come out probably in the next 6 months, he's got personal experiences that are contact experiences and also being, you know, in these programs, but he also has witness testimony all along the way from his jobs that he witnessed. So those are two different important points that I just want to point out because it gets confused sometimes in the relaying of the stories. Okay, so you talk with him.
Fair.
Yeah.
He's obviously put his story on the high side on the UAP Task Force forum.
Yeah.
Other people have seen it. What happens next?
I ask him if the task force is going to meet with him, right? I'm like, you got to talk to the task force, right? And so he said, the task force, as everyone knows, had some funding issues at the time, right? They didn't have any money, right? And that includes getting a couple tickets to Florida, right, where this guy was working out of, right? So they didn't have funding. They couldn't meet up. Now, like I said, I left 2 years ago, so as I understand it, like he eventually did meet up with people, and gave his testimony to various groups. So that guy, he's a hero, and I can't wait. I can't. His star is going to shine brightly. I can't wait to see him.
Me
Come
either.
out
Me
and tell his
either.
story.
So can you tell folks
Courtney,
who are listening, like what happened then for you personally, because that's where things kind of go.
And Courtney, I do want to make it very clear, right? The implications of what he told everyone, right?
Yeah.
The implications are that there is a certain NHI group, right, that is working with the U.S. military.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, I keep pointing that out to people, but I keep saying the being was wearing a military uniform, but people think about it in different ways. And it's interesting because I just made that assumption that, hey, obviously this documents, we're working with them. There's a secret government. It's all established. The Eisenhower thing is real. Like, let's get into the history of how this all came about and what led to this sighting for him in the desert. But people don't necessarily make that quantum leap, which I think is interesting. They kind of think about it as different variations or different versions of what could have happened. Like the being could have stole the uniform. I mean, I've heard so many different things that I'm like, this is interesting.
Yeah, let's just use some common sense here, right? The common sense explanation is that this being is a part of the program, right?
He did not just say that. Let's use some common sense here. We're gonna let that go, y'all.
Right? There's a program here. He's a part of it. He works alongside U.S. military. I was in the military. I had to earn that uniform, right? So, this isn't a my lab, right, where folks saw, somebody, being in a military uniform or something. It wasn't a dream sequence. The dude with other dudes went out to the desert, right, and saw this freaking being, right, standing out there in his craft in the distance, okay, asking.
And we should also say what happened to the two military guys that were with our witness. One guy disappears. I think it was the guy in the back seat, and the other one has mental health issues in his discharge from the military shortly after. So that's also important to note, just context of what happened to the two other witnesses.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I'll go ahead and, you want me to jump into my experience here?
If you want to, yeah.
So we'll get to that at the end of the video of Steve's experience. And again, for me, it's mind-blowing. But I'm curious, we're all on different levels here, right, with this topic. So I'm curious what some of you are going to think. Some of you may relate. I don't know. I'm not judging here, okay? We're just here to state the facts and let people let the story out, and you guys decide who are watching and listening, right? You decide for yourself. But this is, interesting, to say the least. Now, real quick, we're going to go to the next bit here. Jesse Michaels was recently on The Big Thing, and Christian Harloff asked him about Jason Sands. So let's take a listen to that, see what Jesse Michaels has to say.
Then I'm sure you've been paying attention to this Jason Sands stuff going on.
Yeah.
I don't know what
have you. It's like, how is he? I think he's good.
Wait, What just happened there? That's interesting. Hang on a second. That just like... Did that get cut out? That was in there before. Hang on, y'all. Okay, no. Here we go. Sorry.
I mean, then I'm sure you've been paying attention to this Jason Sands stuff going on.
Yeah.
I don't know what to make of all this.
Right.
Because so for those people, again, Jason Sands was the guy. Now James Fox, who's very respected in the community, goes and makes he's making a new document, and he has this interview where he says that he's got this guy. And he's seen documents with this guy, he's seen pictures with this guy, and everyone's like, well, it's got to be this Jason Sands guy, because then Jason Sands comes out and he does this interview on Twitter Spaces. Which
not a good first move.
What are you doing? That's where you need a guy like you to say, let me set up the News Nation or something, or do something, because you're doing Twitter Spaces right away. That made me go, huh? What's he doing there? And so he detailed a lot of stuff. Now, one of the things that threw me off with this, they asked him about Grush, and he said, have you worked with Grush? And he's like, I've worked with Grush. He called him Grush. Called him Grush, like, and we talk all the time. I'm like, well, why are you calling him Grush? And it's like that, and that could just be a little thing inside of my head because I'm just now at this point, I'm looking at, I try to have a skeptic point of view as much as I have the disclosure point of view in there too. But this guy's talking about a lot of different things, because if the stuff that he's saying is accurate, and a guy like David Grush goes, no, this guy is legit. James Fox he's legit. Leslie Kane was in there listening to this Twitter Spaces when this thing was happening.
Yeah, sure.
So if all these people back this guy up, and he turns out to be the whistleblower and says the kind of shit that he's saying, it'll blow the roof off the place. But the first question is, are you following this guy, and what do you make of him?
I am following him. I met him once.
Okay.
So maybe the sort of revealed preference is that I didn't do a show with him.
Okay.
But I don't also actively distrust the guy. It's not like I don't want to knock him.
But you're like the rest of us. Something you want to see what's going on first.
I want to see what's going on first. And definitely kind of a weird initial PR move to do Twitter Spaces if you're like the first guy that like dealt with the material firsthand. So I don't know what your goal is there. But look, he seemed, when I met him, like pretty earnest and actually a little almost traumatized or something. Like
interesting.
He had gone through like a lot.
Okay.
But I just don't know exactly what to make of him. And unlike Grush, look, my opinion is, in order to get a real consensus shift and like closer towards that like disclosure moment, I think we need one of two things: a real Bob Lazar, or like not. Now, I'm not saying Bob Lazar was even fake, but like an undeniable Bob Lazar, like hapless engineer type, where it's like, I was recruited into the thing. I have no intel credentials prior to like being recruited into the thing. Like that would be really, really good, because you'd know all of the sort of manipulation abilities, and like that, that's all kind of out the window. You can like see that this person's just like kind of this earnest dude. That, or at the top, sort of a department head, like a really credible, head of a government agency, head of the DOD, or Secretary of Defense, Secretary of Energy, that sort of thing. And then I don't know on Jason Sands. I think if he comes out with a lot more detail that we can corroborate through other sources, then I'm totally open to it. And so I don't want to knock him, and I hope it's real.
That's my thing.
I don't care if I'm covering. I'm a fan of James Fox, and I hope it's real.
Yeah, great comments. Interesting. Jesse Michaels met him and was potentially going to do a video about him. That's pretty interesting. Great interview in studio with Christian Harloff. I'll put a link in the description. Please go check that out. Of course, all links in the description. And I'm going to put a link in the description to my appearance on The Big Thing with Christian. But, corroborate Jason's story. Well, as you heard from Courtney, like the other two witnesses are gone, right? One discharged for a mental illness and the other disappeared. You know. So, interesting, right? It's like we'll never know. Honestly, there's no way to corroborate Jason's story ever unless that alien came forward, right? He's the only other person there. Everyone else, even if they were to prove that we were working with NHI, that doesn't mean Jason's story is true, right? So, you know, it's interesting that people would come out and put themselves in that particular situation where they can't prove their story at all. It's just a story. I don't know. I find that interesting. I don't know. But at the same time, there shouldn't be a stigma. I mean, you should be able to come forward with your story as well. And, you know, this is part of the process. You know, they say it in here. Jesse Michaels and Christian basically talk about that, right? Like, that should be the first thing that happens is you start trying to debunk it right away. Ask questions. That's part of the process, and there's nothing wrong with that. You know, so that's what these videos are about. You know, Jason's making quite big claims. Hey, man, I don't know. We got to figure out what you're saying, right? Because there's a lot of people, as you're going to see in this video, that there's a lot of people that just distrust Jason's story, right? So, and everyone that he has mentioned, no one has come out to back up his story at all. James Fox, Lou Elizondo, Chris Mellon, you know, I don't even know who else, right? Jeremy Corbell. None of these people have come out. In fact, some people have come out against him, as you'll see. So this is also interesting. Apparently, in June 11th of 2023, so June 11th, right as Grush has just come out, there's a channel called Goof On, and right here you can see who is in the video. Right here, look. That's Jason Sands. But he's not going by Jason Sands. It's hard to see here. When I hit play, you'll be able to see it, but it says Ted Howells. Okay, so he goes under a different name and goes on the show, Ted Howells. So that's Jason Sands, all right? Now, to be fair to Jason, his middle name is Theodore. So Ted, Theodore, I don't know. That works. Is that the same thing? Let's listen to what he has to say here.
You know Grush?
Yeah.
Actually be released?
Yeah, I believe so. I know Grush, and I've been with him the whole way through, but yeah, he's really pushed for that. I
He's been with them the whole way through. Are you taking notes, people?
He knows Grush, right? So that's the clip that Christian was talking about, right? He knows Grush. Now, again, link in the description. Go check it out. He talks about knowing David Grush. David Grush has not come out. And apparently, again, Jason Sands is potentially, allegedly, one of David Grush's 40, witnesses / whistleblowers. And parts of Jason's story are things that David Grush has said. So, which, leads me to believe that is true. Now, something else that came up on Twitter was this, or about Jason. This came up on Twitter, but about Jason, because that's the only place Jason has told his stories, on Twitter. Right? By the way, there were many folks that are in that forum that were not employees. All right. Jason, can you confirm you were on the phone with Jeremy Corbell in this Tubi documentary? Someone asked him. Maybe thinking Tubi documentary. Came out in January, and that's where the jellyfish video got shown, right? The TMZ documentary on Tubi. The jellyfish UFO video from Jeremy Corbell. Remember that? Well, in that, they also talked about a chandelier UFO. And they had a photo of it only, right? And there's a scene where Jeremy Corbell is standing on his back patio, talking to this guy on the phone, an intelligence officer, and going over the video, but they don't name who it is. And some people think it's Jason Sands, right? And so this guy asked Jason this, and it's Jason's response that threw me. Says, I do talk to Jeremy, but no, he may want you to address that himself. If you weren't the guy on the phone in this document, you would just say, no, that's not me, dude. I don't know who that is. Instead, what does this do? Let's be real. What does that do? That just confuses. Now you think this is the guy, right? Or there's more to it. I do talk to Jeremy. So Jason does talk to Jeremy. Again, why have none of these people come out in support of Jason? It is a little strange because a lot of these people do use Twitter as a platform to release information, make statements. I mean, Chris Mellon tweeted out the response, the signal thing after Jason came out. And Chris Mellon is supposedly the one that introduced Jason Sands to James Fox for the documentary, right? So just confusing. Now, why don't we do something? Why don't we check that Tubi documentary and see? You can hear the guy's voice. You tell me if that sounds like Jason Sands. All right. Now, to kind of help you out a little, I'm going to play a little Jason Sands audio so you can hear him, and then I'll play the Tubi.
Perfect. I'm exactly who that is. Yes.
Thanks.
So you're, just to be clear, you're the guy that Steve has been talking about, right?
Yes. Steve and I met back in
So this is Jason Sands talking right now.
2021. He is correct in that it was in reference to the stuff that you've been talking about.
Okay, you've heard that. We'll come back to it. Here it is. Oh my God, look at my hair, guys. What is it? This is angsty, Patrick. This is like, what kind of hair do I have? Look at this. I look like Jennifer Aniston from Friends. Who let me have hair like that, y'all? Jesus, this is hilarious. Oh, go ahead, roast me in the comments. I deserve it. That's hilarious. Yeah, I'm happy to have my short hair again. I've always had short hair. That's hilarious. All right, let's play this here. I think we're gonna do this one. Now, you know what? I'm gonna show you real quick. Look right here. Jeremy Corbell tweeted or commented on this video. So just saying. All right. Here we go. Let's listen to this guy on The Voice in the Tubi documentary and see if that's really Jason Sands.
Hello?
Hey, Matt, how's it going?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm good. So you are aware that I have to receive something multiple times if it appears to be a military-based assessment that something is a UFO, right?
Correct.
You hear it better in a second.
So I've got a still image for something that I have learned to be called the Chandelier UAP. Does that ring a bell to you?
It does.
This still image, it was filmed, I can tell by the coordinates, it was filmed over the Persian Gulf.
It's called the chandelier because if you lay down at your dining room table and look up at your chandelier, it looks just like that. It's very thin, and the object does not circulate on its own. It is going in very small circles.
So what was the most impressive thing to you about this video, which the world has not seen yet?
The fact that it makes no sense. It is just the most bizarre structure with no purpose and with speed that has everyone across the intelligence community just asking questions and trying to figure out what this thing is.
So let's go back real quick. And remember, in this recording that I played for you guys, this one I'm about to show you guys, right? Remember that Jason says that he studied these stuff, right? To be able to help them, right? Tell them, hey, guys, don't look at that. Look at this stuff. And Jeremy Corbell is talking to him about video, photo, right? Stuff, right? And again, he basically admits to talking to Jeremy and that you should ask him if I'm the guy on the phone, instead of just outright denying it. So again, let's listen to the voice again.
And he called me because I ever since I started to sort of help out with the task force.
That doesn't sound like him to me.
There is no wings. There's seemingly no place for anyone to sit.
Does that sound like the same guy?
With some of my Black World.
It seems like Jason talks much slower, right? And this guy's talking a lot faster.
It's just a bizarre shape that has a strange propulsion and disappeared immediately.
So what do y'all think?
Expertise, I guess, to try to make sure that we weren't looking at videos that we already had in our inventory. And
it just doesn't sound like the same guy to me.
Obviously had great access to things that the public hasn't seen yet. And it is your determination that this UFO thing, there's something major to it and the public should know?
Absolutely. Absolutely, 100%. I can tell you that across the U.S. intelligence community, there are people like me and David who have seen things and are asking questions and trying to figure out what we're seeing because there are no answers. And when
he does say me and David, and then the other guy says, I know Grush, Grush, calls him Grush. This guy calls him Grush, so I don't think it's him. Right? He called Jason called him Grush. This guy's calling him Grush. I just don't think it doesn't sound like that, right? This guy's pattern is just a little quicker, thinner, I would say, where Jason's is a little drawn out, a little more southern drawl, a little, thicker voice. I don't know how to explain it. Just different, slower too. So I don't know. It's not the same to me. But again, links in the description. Y'all check it out for yourself. Y'all tell me, what you guys think. All right, let's go to the next thing that I have here, which is quite interesting. This is basically a statement, right, that Dave Scott's going to read, and he's also been talking to Jason Sands. Remember Nicole Sakic here? She's the one that told me about the killing of the alien and just the rumor, right, about it. We had just spoken about it. I heard it from her. And Dave has talked to Jason as well as Courtney, right? They did a podcast. That's in my part 1, I think, and part 2. So again, links in the description. Check that out so you can sort of catch up on all this. But Dave is getting ready to read a statement that he got that I found quite interesting. All right, so let's just play it and you'll see what I'm talking about. Hang on. Okay, yeah.
I got a statement from somebody within the intelligence community.
So,
I was talking.
Where Nathan.
What's going on here? Okay, here we go.
And from somebody within the intelligence community in the United States earlier today, and I'm going to read this that was sent to me, and I do have permission to read this from my intelligence source, because there's a lot of people with a lot of different sources that are going around right now saying that Sands is full of it. He made up a lot of his stories. My job as a journalist is just to present what I know. Okay. And what I have been able to confirm. And I'm waiting for another 3-letter agency person to get back to me on this subject as well. But I'm just going to read this for the public. This is from one of my inside sources. He said, I learned about Jason Sands through a CIA officer who in turn read about his post in the UAP discussion forum hosted on the R Space server. The server is on the high side, that is accessible by DoD and IC personnel with JWICS, Joint Worldwide Intelligence Communication Systems, accounts. For reference, JWICS is a part of the DoD IIS, the Department of Defense Intelligent Information System. The UAP Forum is an official channel on the R-Space official server on which the JWICS or JWICS official communication service on the DoD IIS official information system, all under the Pentagon's control and acceptable only by personnel with top secret SCI clearances and compartments. Jason Sands is cleared to that level. Jason Sands' posted story was subject to review by DoD and IC personnel who read the story, which was taken at face value. His story caught the attention of officers of the major intelligence agencies. Chris Mellon and Lou Elizondo approved the UAP staffers on the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence. They knew he was not a Pentagon plant. Chris Mellon facilitated the introduction between Jason Sands and James Fox, who was working on a documentary. Jason Sands wrote to James Fox about his encounter, which at this point was sequestered within the top secret SCI R-Space server. James Fox read portions of that correspondence on social media. James Fox inadvertently leaked a photo which showed his name written on a movie clapper, which Fox took down. Subsequently, in preparation for Fox's documentary, Jason Sands submitted his story to the Defense Office of Pre-Publication and Security Review, otherwise known as DOPSR. DOPSR authorized the release of his story from the top secret SCI R-Space to the unclassified public domain with one key redaction. Any reference to NHI at Groom Lake had to be stricken. In the meantime, an ODNI contractor who is involved in the UAP issue for the DNI contacted Jason Sands and brought him into a group of UAP witness peers working in the IC. My CIA friend contacted Jason Sands and took his testimony on the top secret SCI phone line. At no time did they consider Jason Sands to be a Pentagon plant. I do not know how Courtney and you, Dave, entered the picture with Jason Sands. You are likely to know more about that. I last year spoke with Jason Sands on a Signal call and have been in Signal message contact as recently as yesterday. I believe his Blue Being account. I learned about his childhood NHI experiences. Courtney might also know about his childhood experiences. His experiences are his own, and I take them at face value.
So Jason Sands has had childhood ET experiences as well. So again, there's a lot to still come out in this James Fox documentary, and it may not all come out in that documentary depending on what James includes. And or after, remember I think it was the first part that I did, part one or part two of my Jason Sands videos here. You know, it's said that he will do more interviews after the James Fox documentary comes out. So supposedly he's not going to be making any other statements or going, or at least not any recordings or anything, right? I guess he's going to tweet out some stuff, I guess, that he's doing. But, you know, anyway, so I found this interesting, right? Why haven't any of these people come out to stick up for Jason? Right? It's been days at this point. I don't know. Interesting. Maybe they're just waiting to see how it all shakes out. But, I mean, look, you know, Jason's on a secure forum. He has the clearance. All of that stuff can be verified about Jason. No one's questioning any of that, any of his credentials. It's literally just the story, right? The program. He can't prove any of that. He can't prove working in the program. He can't prove that he was out in that desert. He can't prove that that event happened that night, right? That's what people are questioning, not his credentials. Yes, he's on a secure platform. Yes, all of these things. Yes, okay. Yes, he got interviewed by the CIA. Yes, he gave his testimony to different, you know, parts of the government. But none of that proves anything. No one's questioning any of that stuff. It's just that the night in question in the late 90s where he had the event, you know, communication with the blue alien, and that he worked in this secret program to begin with, right? Those two things can't be proven, right? So this was interesting. Today, this got put out. This new Twitter account popped up called UAP United, all right, which sounds like some sort of soccer club, which is interesting, right? But look what it says. A collective that facilitates UAP whistleblowers sharing information with the community. We prioritize transparency, right? And their second post is this. We'll get to that in a second. It's a statement from Jason Sands, but their first post is this. We are a global collective of journalists and researchers giving whistleblowers a platform to share UAP information and insights, committed to truth and authenticity. We uphold strict confidentiality for our sources. Join our pursuit of clarity in the UAP phenomenon. So, journalists and researchers, I think that's really podcasters and researchers. I don't know how many, because I don't know what's, I don't consider myself a journalist. That's a totally different field, right? There's at-home cooks, and then there's chefs who run kitchens. I'm a YouTuber, right? Creator here, maybe, and podcaster, I guess you could say, if you want it. But am I no way a journalist? I don't have those standards. I don't hold myself to that. And I think some podcasters do. And that's fine. Everyone's allowed to do what they want. But this is interesting. Okay, I kind of support it. But I think Jason Sand is behind it, or part of it. Right? Talked about a nonprofit to help other whistleblowers. So coincidentally, after he drops his story, he's starting this, UAP United. There's no way this was just come up with, right? And remember, he has his law firm website. I don't know if this is, whatever, but, perfect time to launch this, right? Everyone's focused on you. And he puts out an official statement, all right? And we're going to read it. Hang on here. So again, UAP United official statement from Jason Sands on recent discussions and misrepresentations regarding the processes of whistleblowing and the various bodies involved. The National Defense Authorization Act, the NDAA, outlines the whistleblower process, not the Inspector General's process. The role of the Intelligence Community Inspector General, ICIG, where my case was ultimately directed, focuses specifically on investigations within the intelligence community. This was decided after some deliberation about whether my case should go to the Department of Defense Inspector General, the DODIG, due to my role as an action officer last year. The distinction was made because my experiences related to my time on active duty as an intelligence analyst. Importantly, under the NDAA whistleblower legislative protections, the ICIG process does not confer any additional whistleblower status once a person is covered under these protections. In recent conversations, particularly during the spaced out radio broadcast around the 3:40 timestamp, interesting, I clarified that while 20 and Back is not an official program name, it refers to a significant, though difficult, experience within the programs I was part of. It appears that this crucial part of my statement was omitted in some post, leading to misunderstandings about my testimony. I am committed to providing more information soon to further clarify the challenging aspects of my experience with the program. So we covered that in part 2 yesterday of what that means. Please check that out if you want to know more. It's quite fascinating, to say the least. Let's read the last part here. There have been inaccuracies in public discussions about my clearance and credentials. Richard Doty recently suggested that the system used to look up my clearances was incorrect. My clearance levels and specific access details are not publicly accessible and require specific read-ins, which not everyone discussing my case has. So, it's bad when Rick Doty is calling you out. That's the kettle calling black. What is it? Pot calling the kettle black. Eric Davis, who again is one of David Grush's 40 whistleblowers. So that's interesting here, what we're about to read. Also made erroneous claims regarding the system of my record for my clearances. Such access is compartmentalized and limited to those with equivalent clearance levels. Both Mr. Doty and Mr. Davis have made significant errors in their public statements regarding my case. I urge them to retract their statements and correct the record. To everyone navigating through the intricacies of this discussions and disclosures, I appreciate your patience and diligence in seeking the truth. It's crucial that these conversations reflect the complexities and sensitivities of the issues at hand accurately. I remain committed to transparency and the pursuit of clarity in this ongoing dialogue. Signed, Jason Sands. So, what is the Eric Davis message? Well, let's check this out. So Eric Davis says this in a Facebook group. Sands turned out to be either a liar or a believer of his own BS. He was never vetted, and his story keeps changing. People I collaborate with have met him and realized that his claims don't hold water. The only thing that they felt was certain from meeting Sands is that he likely did work at USAF bases, United States Air Force bases. So they're basically saying the only thing that's true about him is he worked some Air Force bases. But that's it. That's Eric Davis. Again, one of David Grush's whistleblowers. Calling out Jason Sands over here. Eric Davis calling out Jason Sands. Interesting. This could be whistleblower versus whistleblower. I don't know. It's David Grush. I don't know. Again, it's so interesting, right? Y'all tell me what y'all think down in the comments. All right, last thing we're going to end on. This is, let's see here. Yeah, we're going to end on basically Steve. Remember from the beginning, Steve, we're going to end on his story, his experience on this. And you can see who's in there. Anelie, right? Listening to him, getting ready to tell this story. So interesting, to say the least. So let's listen to Steve's story now. I'm going to play 4 different parts of his story, okay? It's like over an hour long, I think, or 50 minutes, sorry. Again, link in the description. Go check it out for yourself. It's a 2-hour extreme. So again, let's play the first clip here.
And now we're sharing it with you. So this is a pretty big deal.
So I think I found the program. Okay. I think I found the name of the program, and I'm highly confident I found it.
Okay, tell us your confidence value. How high statistically? How high do you think it is?
Let me tell you.
75%.
No,
85.
Not 90%. 90%.
All right.
Okay. So I had a few data points, which I won't get into, but there were a few data points, right, that were kind of pointing me there, right? It's like, well, this is, like after those data points, I'm like, this is it. This is the program, right? I wasn't read into it, right? I've never heard of it, but this was the name of the program. And so I go. So that morning when I have that note, that the message I wrote down, I have it in my back pocket. And so I go to lunch that day, and with a colleague of mine, good friend. He's a senior analyst, and he was working on the National Intelligence Council. And we're having lunch, and I tell him, I joke with him, right? I'm like, dude, I found it, right? He's like, found what, right? The alien time travel program, right? I found it. And I told him the name, and he just kind of half laughs. He's like, "Oh yeah, And then I'm like, yeah, and then I pause. I'm like, wait a minute, like based on his reaction, right? I'm like, wait a minute, is this like Fight Club, right? Like, don't talk about Fight Club. And he looks at me, long pause, and he says, what were we talking about? And I'm like, oh shit, right? Like, this is it. Like, oh my God, right? Like this is it. This is verification. And I say to him, I'm like, oh man.
Just use Steve words or from earlier. Let's use some common sense here, Steve.
Man, I'm sorry, because I felt like I put him on the spot, right? Like, you don't do this. You don't call people out on what they're involved in, what they know or don't know, right? But I was like, oh shit, right? And then I remembered I have my message, right? And I was like, dude, you're gonna think this is crazy, but I have to read this to you, right? So I take out this piece of paper in the cafeteria, right? And I read it to him, like, if you do not speed up or allow this awakening, we will. So I read it to him, and the normal reaction should be, what the hell's an awakening? Who is we?
Or what's wrong with you? Why are you talking about this? Like, this is ridiculous. Or I don't have any idea, what you're getting at. I think that you're, you know what I mean, unhinged. You need to zip it, or you're going to lose your damn job. Like, but that's not what happened. And this is one of the other things that I think is confirmation for you personally. It was his response. And he's National Defense Council or whatever, Security Council.
Intelligence Council. So, and then so I read him the message, and he said, another long pause, and he's just like, I'm just an analyst, right? I'm just an analyst. That was his response. Like I just work here, bro. Right. Like, and I say to him, well, can you get this to your, to the folks in charge? Can you get this message to the folks in charge? And he just kind of shrugs his shoulder, and that was it. Right. That was it for lunch. So as we're walking out, right, I'm just like, universe is a crazy place, huh? And he said, apparently. And we just, we part ways. And but at that moment, right, that was like confirmation that all this was like, something was happening. I was part of something bigger than me. I had to get this message out, right? So I was convinced, right, that I had to share this message with folks I felt who would be in this. And so I did.
So that's part one of Steve's story. Let's go to part two. Hang with me here.
Okay. All right. Good.
Yeah. So what happened? So that was February 14th, 2022, Valentine's Day. I get in an argument with my wife, understandably, right? Because I'm telling her, there's something wrong with me, right? And we're freaking out because this is my career. I mean, that's it. My career is done. It was done that Thursday. Thursday was the last day, right, I had at the organization, and I never returned except for my follow-up kind of medical interview. But that Thursday I was done. My job was done. And that Monday morning, that Valentine's Day, I stay at a hotel because I just need some space away, right, from everyone. But I spend the whole evening meditating, and like Three Body Problem, the wall facer, right? Like, that was me. I was staring at the wall. I was like meditating, right? Like I knew something was going on, but I don't know. I was just very trying to focus internally, try to figure this out. So Monday morning comes, and I just have this I don't know, compulsion, right, to start telling people about this program. Okay, there's something about this program that whoever's talking to me, right, doesn't like. Okay, and so I call this, and this is like kind of crazy town, right? This is just part of my experience. I'm putting it all out there. I call the FBI threat line. All right, and at the time it made sense, right? So I call the FBI threat line. I tell them, the poor woman that answered the threat line, she had to deal with me, but I call and I said, yes, my name is such and such. I work with this organization. My badge number is XYZ, right? I'm calling to report an illegal program that's targeting U.S. citizens. That program name, I'm sorry, I'm going to back up. I tell her that, there's this illegal program targeting U.S. citizens. And she's like, whoa, sir, slow down, right? What's going on, right? So I repeat it, and she's like, and what's the name of this program? And I tell her the name of the program, and then the line immediately clicks, right? Disconnected. Okay. I tried calling back on my cell phone. It wouldn't get through. I wouldn't go through. I tried using the hotel phone, did not go through. So I go across the street to the gas station. I call them back, and I'm like, yeah, it's me again, right? And she's like, did you just call? Like, yeah, I just called. And she said, I mentioned a special agent's name. I'm like, you need to get this information to this special agent's name, right? And that was the end of the call, right? So who knows? I don't know what's going on. I'm not going to say that someone was listening. They were Johnny on the spot. They just
pardon me. So, I really don't know even what to say, if I'm being honest. I'm a little speechless. So, I don't know if there's something happening mentally with this guy. He's claiming to basically get these downloads, right? Like Tim Taylor, Chris Bledsoe, that whole thing, right? And I mean, he's losing his job. Like everything's falling apart for him. He's calling the FBI threat line, right? But there's weird things, he's thinking after a lunch with one guy and a couple winks, over, Monte Cristo that he's uncovered this alien time travel program. I don't know. Again, he's saying also, let's use common sense. Whose common sense? Apparently, we all have different versions of what that means. And what our level for common is and sense. So I don't know. Look, it's interesting for sure. And this guy isn't just a nobody in the sense of, and I hate nobody, it is kind of weird that a person's experience like this is more important than, Joe Schmo who lives on whatever, America Street, right? 123 America Street, right? Like, why is their experience any less important than this guy's? Right? Because he worked in the government. He comes from Intel. That's what we should be most worried about. I'm more trusting of my neighbor who would tell me a story like this, if I'm being honest, than ex-Intel, right? Like, look, like Jesse Michael said, we need someone with no Intel background to come out, right? If we're trying to help, quote unquote, disclosure, right? Because it just, just a lot of questions here, right? Because not only is he saying he uncovered a program and there's these things happening, he's also saying I had an experience, right? Same thing with Jason Sands. It's like, I'm just saying, I don't know. His story is interesting. Steve's story is interesting. Will he ever come forward one day? I think he may. It's possible. I don't know. And, look, he's kind of a one and done. He told his story and he's out. He's not going to do anymore. That's what he tweeted out, right? Like taking a break from, maybe later down the road, I guess he'll come. I don't know. But like, I don't like that. Just kind of you don't get to ask any real questions. Nobody's really saying anything. You know what I mean? Like, what are we supposed to do with this information? What am I supposed to do with this information? Am I supposed to change my whole life because I heard this stuff? Am I supposed to what? Again, what's the point of this? There's no visuals with it. It's just, right? We see a little icon with it's like Mortal Kombat, but it's like, there he is, Steve, right there, right? With the infinity, right? Just like Jason Sands is. some random thing, right? So I don't know. Again, I don't know what we're supposed to do. All right, let's go to the next part of his story. We got 2 more parts, and then we'll be done. I know this is a long video, y'all. Another deep dive. I don't think we're going to be doing another one for a while of Jason Sands. Take a break on that.
But after that call, I get the immediate urge to leave that hotel room. Like, I mean, my heart rate, I've gotten a shot of adrenaline before. It felt like adrenaline. Like my heart rate immediately went from like,
So this is after the phone call to the FBI and the threat, right? Making that call and whatever. This is what he's talking about.
From 100 beats to like 180, 200 beats. Like I had to, and I felt compelled to leave that damn hotel room. So I had to leave. So I go out, I get my stuff. I go out the back way, right down the stairs. Okay. I go outside. I see a man, with a dog wearing a mask, right? I thought that was weird. Maybe it was normal back then, but I get in my car. Okay. And this is where it gets even crazier. I get in my car and I start hearing a voice at this point. And the first thing that voice says is, I just saved your ass back there. Right. And I'm like, what the hell's going on? Right. And so I'm driving and, I'm talking, talking, I guess is the best way to say it. I'm talking to this voice, right? That's like in my head, right? I'm having an actual conversation with this, I want to say entity, this voice. And this voice is explaining to me what the hell's going on. And I gotta keep saying it sounds crazy because it is crazy.
So, just, kind of, so we understand what's happening, right? He just made the phone call to the FBI. He's lost his job and stuff. And he's now riding in the car, leaving the hotel because his heartbeat was racing. He's uncovered this program. He's trying to tell people about it. And he's on his way to a congressperson's office. And he won't say who, but that's about to come up here in a second. And this voice starts talking to him. Saved your ass back there. This voice says to him and starts to explain to him what happened, right? This voice. He's right. It does sound crazy. But we're in the UFO community, so it all sounds crazy.
Stop putting the disclaimer out there that, this is crazy stuff. So I'll just go ahead and keep telling it.
Doesn't mean it's not true.
So as I'm talking, this group, this entity identifies itself as Malachi. Okay. Malachi. And, so I at this point I have like no control over my body. I know that sounds
Malachi, like Children of the Corn. Is that right? Am I getting that right? I can't remember that reference. Malachi. I mean, if that doesn't sound demonic, I don't know what, satanic, right? Like, I don't know what does. He's saying he's losing control of his body. Okay. So he's being taken over by this being who just saved his ass back there. Got him out of that hotel room after he made that phone call. Right? Because apparently insinuating maybe, a squad of mercenaries were going there or assassins to kill him or something. I don't know.
Sounds strange because I'm driving, but it feels like I am in the audience, right? Watching this movie kind of play out. And this entity is telling me, so don't fight it. Right. Because at one point I was trying to fight it and it was like, don't fight it. Just, let this experience kind of happen. Right. Let me take control here. Right. And so it was telling me what's going on. And so it's as I'm driving, and I am driving to a congressperson's office. Okay. The congressperson's office, it was kind of far away, so I had some time in the car, right? I'm driving there, and I know this congressperson. I'm not going to mention their name, I don't want to interfere in anything they have going on. But this Malachi, he's telling me, all right, here's what's going on. There are two factions of NHI. Okay, one NHI group has been asleep for a very long time, asleep for like a couple thousand years, and they are in conflict with this other faction, right? Whichever faction that may be. And this faction that's been asleep, they are awakening, right? They are coming back. And there was also some kind of covenant involved. And I don't know if that was covenant with humans or if that was a covenant between the factions. I didn't get a lot of specifics, right? But as I'm driving there, okay, Malachi, he starts. What does he do? He starts telling this he starts having this conversation with this congressperson, okay, and is he saying, we are on our way, right? You must awaken, right? We are on our way. You must prepare for us.
So there's much more to the story. There's another 20 minutes to this story. On his way, there's another person that gets involved inside of his head that's in his body. This woman, Aphrodite, right? So you got Malachi and Aphrodite. I mean, that's what the story continues, and it's told a lot of stuff. So anyway, check it out. Link in the description. Go hear the rest of this guy's story. Again, to each their own. Everybody decide what you want. I presented quite a bit of information. There's 3 parts of Jason Sands. That should be more than enough, in my opinion, to sort of get an idea of what you feel about this guy and whether or not it's even important, right? People should be allowed to come out and tell their stories at the end of the day. It's not like it changes your daily life, right? None of this changes our daily lives here. But, we'll continue to follow his story. It's very interesting. You got different people in the community who support him and some that don't. And it's interesting. David Grush was very, within the UFO community, David Grush was pretty much adored by everybody, right? And respected by everybody. Jason Sands is an interesting whistleblower. He's very divisive, like Bob Lazar, essentially, in a lot of ways. Just divisive, right? Some people, yes, some people don't, story doesn't check out, this, that, the other. But the one thing about Jason is, again, his credentials check out for the most part, except according to Eric Davis. I don't know, Rick Doty, who knows, man? This is so interesting, for sure. So again, check out the 3 parts. I'll put a link in the description to the other 2 parts. You've seen this one. All the links for all of this are in the description. Check it out. We'll see you guys on tomorrow's episode. All right. All right, y'all. Remember, every day's a gift, y'all. Peace.